What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Hassan's Hits. Welcome to episode 7. If you have not already subscribed, can you please hit that subscribe button? And if you have already subscribed, thank you for the support. We have young Kylian Mbappe has been offered $1.1 billion. That's right, $1.1 billion to come play in the Saudi League. Now, as far as you know what Mbappe should do, to take the money and go play for Al Hilal for one season. But you're talking about, like, I'm more interested in, what's at play here. Like, I'm more interested in what's going to happen league wise, as far as the Saudi League goes, and as far as, the trickle down effect for the European leagues. What are they going to do to stop the floodgates? You have no choice. You're either going to pay the players an absurd amount of money to stay in your leagues, or, these players are going to leave one by one. What I'm also interested in is what's the scalability of this league? Like, are you trying to build an actual league that competes with the, European leagues, such as the Premier League, such as La Liga, all of these, like leagues that have been around for a long time and have established credibility and have, championships that every player aspires to get? How are you going to counter that? How are you going to create a, legacy for these players that are coming over to your league? So in order to do that, you're obviously going to need to make a TV deal. You're going to need to, have endorsements. You're going to need to do many things for this business to work out for your league. I don't know if this is just a bidding war or we've got a business here. We've got a huge league that's going to become a top 3, top 4 league in the world with, within like 2 or 3 years, where then it makes a lot of sense for you to go grab these players, for you to spend all of this money, for you, to like make a business out of this. You got some of the best clubs in the world in a bidding war for Kylian Mbappe, and then, the Saudi League just goes, we don't care. You come play here, we'll give you $1 billion. Like, you can't compete with that. Now the players are getting money that they actually deserve. You're talking about the premier players in the league. You're talking about the man in the arena, the guys who put butts in seats and are essential for these clubs to survive. Those guys are finding out what they're actually worth. This is the great part about this. You're talking about Kylian Mbappe right now. Mbappe is projected to be at least a top 5 all-time player by the time he retires. Like, Kylian Mbappe is one of the best players that football has ever seen. We know that for a fact by now. And so for Kylian Mbappe, that is at stake here. For him, if he's going to stay long-term in the Saudi League, he's gonna need for them to have his legacy preserved. If he's gonna stay there long term, you want to be able to compete with the best leagues in the world. You want to be able to compete for the best trophies in the world. And you want to be a viable league that everyone looks at, and those statistics in that league count towards something. We have one of the best cards of the year coming up, UFC 291, featuring Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier 2. Now, we know how the first one ended. Dustin Poirier stopping Justin Gaethje in a brawl. One of the best fights in UFC history. And so they run it back. Now, also on the card, we have Alex Pereira making his 205 debut against Jan Blachowicz. A huge fight. And a fight that has many implications on what happens at the 205 division. Now, Alex Pereira is trying to make noise in this fight, and he's trying to set himself up to fight the big dogs at 205 and, lay claim to that belt. And at some point, Jamal Hill gets over that injury. If Alex Pereira is holding that belt by that time, we have a huge fight on our hands that has a big storyline. Now, anyone that's following along in the UFC and in MMA knows what I'm talking about. You have Glover Teixeira, Alex Pereira's friend and training partner, lost to Jamal Hill in devastating fashion. You know, Jamal Hill beat the brakes off of Glover Teixeira. And afterwards, as you all saw, Alex Pereira entered the octagon and sized up Jamal Hill, you know, shaking his hand, but also you could see, you know, there was tension. We're going to have to see how it all plays out, and Jamal Hill hopefully recovers well from that injury for that fight to happen. But that is what is at stake. Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier. Now, what I failed to mention here is that the BMF belt is on the line. The BMF belt that no one cares about. It just seems to be something that Dana White cares about, and maybe Jorge Masvidal. I would be very surprised if we put a poll out and even 10% of people said they cared about that belt being on the line. The truth of the matter is, this is a great fight, and this is a fight that, you know, many MMA fans have been looking forward to. You're talking about two guys that completely went to war in their first fight, you know, getting to run it back again, and we'll most likely see the same thing happen again. These are two guys that don't take a back step and are going to go toe-to-toe, mano-a-mano. They don't fight in styles where they're going to dance around you and try to outpoint you. So now that Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk both have fights lined up coming up, you know, let's revisit Tyson Fury ducking Alexander Usyk. Let's revisit that for a second. You have a situation here where Tyson Fury, you know, blatantly on camera asked for Alexander Usyk to accept a 70-30 split. Obviously going his way. He felt like he's the A side. He has all the power, and Alexander Usyk has nothing to claim. Tyson Fury can get more of the share. He can get, you could argue as far as 60-40, in my opinion. Anything past that is disrespect. The interesting part was Tyson Fury asked for that. And Alexander Usyk, knowing Tyson Fury does not want to fight him and that it's a bluff, caught his bluff and said yes. He said yes to a 70-30 split. Absurd. Alexander Usyk is one of the best in the world. Arguably either number 1, number 2, number 3 in pound for pound rankings. You know, I believe Terrence Crawford is across the board number 1 in pound for pound rankings. You could argue Usyk number 2 or number 3. Most of the time he falls in second or third on the pound for pound rankings. That's how great Alexander Usyk is. Well, what happens is when Alexander Usyk said yes to the offer, all of a sudden Tyson Fury starts coming up with other things. If that is not a duck, I don't know what is. In the sport of boxing, you know, you could talk about just a fight game period, MMA, any combat sport. If that is not a duck, I don't know what is. A 70-30 split in a disrespectful manner to a guy who not only is on your level, but might be better. And he says yes to the offer. He didn't have to say yes. He knows that's a disrespectful offer. But in order for him to become undisputed and just prove that he is a better fighter than you, he said yes. And you still ducked him. All right, let's end the show on this. Earlier, I was watching the Joe Budden Podcast, and this is a Patreon exclusive where DJ Academics is the guest, and they're talking about content creation. They're talking about the business side of it, streaming, all sorts of things. Very interesting, right? Now, I want to just talk about Ish, aka Library, washing Ian, Joe's manager. He comes on there, he takes Flip's seat. First of all, Flip just exited the show. Like, he just didn't want to talk tech or business or none of that. So he was out. So with his seat empty, Ian takes over. And like I said, Ian, he knows the business side of things. And he, of course, has been a longtime manager of Joe Budden. Now, you know, hopefully some of you guys are up to par with what I'm talking about. It's the Joe Budden Podcast. It's been going on, I believe, since I want to say late 2015, maybe summer 2015. It's been going on for a while. And, recently, obviously, he went through a lot of changes, all sorts of things. It remains as one of the best podcasts out there. Now, getting to the point. Ian, Joe's manager, getting washed by Ish. Like, when it comes to all these business issues. One of the most interesting things about this episode is that Ish, of course, is very educated on the subject. He knows what he's talking about. However, he also wants to hear out a guy who's a manager and deals with this type of business all the time, in Ian, right? But time and time again through their discussion, Ish is literally proven right. He kept getting frustrated because they'll prove his point while they're talking, and he's like, he just said that, and I understand. I get the frustration because I'm telling you, I was watching the entire episode and he watched him. Like, first of all, Ian does not want to hear a counter argument against him. He kept telling Ish, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. You can't have a discussion with someone that always says you're wrong. Well, if you want to be right all the time, then no one's going to discuss anything with you. No one's going to be able to have any arguments with you, and they're just going to move it along. They're not even going to, there's never going to be a discussion. Trust me. If you're a know-it-all and you want to tell people they're wrong all the time, you don't even want to have a discussion. It's not going to happen. That's number one. Number two, if you listen to this episode, Ish is making his arguments and he will say time and time again, you're right, you're right. That makes sense, because he's like, if he's proven wrong, he's able to say, yeah, I was wrong, yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, that's a good point, That's how you have a discussion. That's how you have a debate. If you're gonna like Ian literally did not want to be wrong, and he kept almost talking to Ish as though he knew everything and he's the business guy and Ish doesn't know anything. And I'm interested to see how other people perceive it, because the way I looked at it is he completely got washed. Every point that Ish wanted to make, he made, because Ian would start talking and prove his point right. It's pretty interesting to me. You're a manager and you deal with these business decisions every day. You know about all of these different topics, whether it comes to content creation, it comes to streaming, all sorts of things. However, when it came time to discuss it, you got washed. It's as simple as that. Let me know what you guys think. Any of the topics that I went through. I appreciate the support. Peace.